Hey up and welcome to this video. Now let me explain why I don't like using the catalogue in Lightroom, and we'll start with some history first. So back in the day when I first started digital photography, I used a program called Nikon Capture NX, which then became NX2, and I used this for quite a while. And I was doing stock photography then. In fact, I'm still doing stock photography now a little bit. And all my images that I submitted to stock agency were edited through Capture NX and NX2. Eventually, Nikon took support away for that software, and they bought out Capture. Or was it called Capture? No, I think it was called NXD. I didn't like this at all, so I carried on using the old software. Lightroom came out and I tried it. I did the trial. I didn't like that really. I just felt it was a bit clunky. So I carried on using Capture NX2 to do all my editing. And it was a good piece of software back in the day, but times have moved on. So I watched a few videos of people using Lightroom and I kind of thought, you know what, let's give this another go. So I did another trial of the Lightroom, got into it and bought the full version. Well, I did a subscription and I started to open up all the images on my hard drives. And back then I'd probably got something like 5 terabytes of images. So as I was learning how to use Lightroom, I was opening up all these folders and images to practice on the learning curve. Because like anything in life, you're on a learning curve, and you are with a piece of software like Lightroom. So I'd opened up something like 100,000 images in Lightroom, and I noticed something was eating my hard drive. My hard drive was being chewed away and the space was disappearing. And this was the catalogue. The catalogue was filling my hard drive up, and it's got to something like 438 gigabytes of memory. I thought, crikey, that's a lot of memory. The other thing that was happening was when I was looking for an image that I'd edited in Lightroom, I was having to scroll up, trying to find it, because I'd not organised my folders as you can do in the catalogue. So I was making life very difficult for myself. And I do know now that, yes, I've watched a few videos about organising your catalogue, but for me it's too late, because now I'm up to 8 terabytes of images and I don't want to sit here for weeks on end organising those into a catalogue. So I've got 2 problems. 1, it was eating my hard drive. 2, I couldn't find an image that I'd edited. So I bit the bullet and I deleted it. I then held a minute's silence and thought of all the editing I'd done was now lost. And it was. This was the best thing I did with Lightroom, deleting the catalogue. What I'm currently doing is I'm going through all my images to submit them to sell as prints on a print site. And because I delete the catalogue, and I now delete that catalogue once a month, when I open an image in Lightroom, I'm pretty much opening it as if I took it yesterday. So I'm opening the raw file, completely unedited. Now, as I've gone through the learning curve over the years and increased my knowledge of Lightroom editing, I am applying my 2023 knowledge to that image. And for me, I'm giving that image the best possible editing based on my current knowledge, and that's my benefit. Let's look at an example. Okay, this was an image that I took in 2016, and it's an image that until a few months ago I'd never processed. I'd looked at it and thought, God, the sky's awful, isn't it? It's white out. No matter what I did with the sliders, I couldn't bring any detail into this sky. So I didn't bother editing it back in 2016. However, a few months ago, I thought, what can I apply? What can I apply with my current 2023 editing skills into this image? Now, if you don't like sky replacements, now is the time to turn away. Okay, so the first thing I did was I did a sky replacement. Back in 2016, you probably could have done one using layers in Photoshop, but it's much easier today in Photoshop to change a sky. And it does a pretty good job. Just look, if we look at the ramp from the lifeboat station, it's just put the sky right behind it, and it's done a really good job. And this scene is at Land's End in Cornwall, by the way. I thought I'd mention that. So even with the sky replacement, it's lifted the image, but I felt it needed something more. So I've then used a radial filter, and we've brought that down in this position, so it's covering part of the sky, and it's also aligned with the beach, and we've got the direction of the light as well. So what we've done then is increase the exposure. We've also warmed up the scene with the white balance, and this has kind of knitted the light together on the beach and the sky. So it looks more blended in. It looks a little bit more authentic. So the radial filter has done a really good job here of knitting that image together. So that was the radial filter. So after this, we made a few changes. We dropped the highlights down. We lifted the shadows because I wanted a bit more of the left-hand side of the scene bringing out. Added a bit of contrast, added some clarity, and then pushed the vibrance up. Because this was a raw file, it was very dull in colour. I then added a linear gradient because I wanted just to darken a little that left-hand side, and that would emphasise more of the light on the right of the image. So we played around with that, and that gave us the final image. And I was really happy with this, and I have submitted this to sell as a print, but in the notes I've highlighted that I have done a sky replacement in this shot, because I think it's right to let the audience know what you've done, particularly if you've made a major change to the image. We shouldn't claim we've took this amazing shot, and it does look really nice, but I think honesty is important when it comes to photography. And I was pleased with that, and I've submitted it to sell as a print. It's not sold yet because selling prints takes time. Let's look at another one. So this is a more recent image. This is from 2 or 3 weeks ago, when I went to Wolfscott Dale in the Peak District. I was taking a shot from inside a cave, and the light was very challenging because inside the cave it was obviously dark. Outside the cave we'd got the summer sun beaming down and lighting up the background. So I did 2 exposures, 2 stops under and 2 stops over, and then when I got home, I put the 2 images through HDR in Lightroom, and that gave us this image. And it has not done a bad job, actually. I was quite pleased with that. But what I wanted to do was try and do something with that background through the main doorway. So I selected that doorway as an object, which you can do in Lightroom, and just painted around the area that I wanted to select, and Lightroom then put an overlay into this area whereby I could change, whereby I could apply the edits just to that frame. So I played around with that and tried to improve it a little, but I couldn't quite get it as I wanted to. The dynamic range outside was just too far gone for me to make it look as I wanted it. And I am going to go back here in the autumn and reshoot this shot and really nail it better, particularly the exposure. So the next adjustment I wanted to make was on the floor. The floor was quite bright, and I felt it was taking over the image. So I used a brush and brushed in another overlay, and then reduced the exposure, reduced the highlights, and that gave me a better, what I thought was a better finish on this shiny textured floor. So next I just wanted to enhance two parts of the walls. So again I used another brush and put another overlay on this right hand side of the wall, and then another one on the left. And we increased both the exposure and the white balance and warmed up those two parts of the walls. And finally I needed to remove the ancient cave drawing that was on the wall. I think there were two eyes actually, but they were a bit distracting. So I removed these with the content aware tool. And that gave us the final image, and I'm quite happy with that. Not happy with the background, but we know we can't make that any better. We have tried, but I just love the textures and the colours and the shades in the cave walls. I am going to go back and make that shot better. I'm going to mint it for sure. So that's it. That's why I don't like using the Lightroom catalogue. I could sit here for a good number of weeks and organise it, but to be honest, I just want to go out and take photographs. So on that note, we'll end the video. Thank you for watching. If you've liked this video, got anything from it, even a small amount of information that you might find useful, give the video a like. If you want to follow my adventures out and about in the Peak District or wherever I end up, then consider subscribing to the channel. You're very welcome. It's free. I'm never going to ask you to buy me a coffee or anything else. I'm never going to ask you for money. I fund this channel myself. Okay, otherwise, I'll see you later.